The boardroom fell silent. Every executive froze. The millionaire's laughter died in his throat. As he stared at the young black woman standing at the head of the table, she had just said 3 words that seemed impossible. "I'm your boss." And now the chairman was nodding. It was true. Before we continue with this powerful story, I want to invite you to subscribe to the Black Voices. We share real stories about resilience, dignity, and the voices that deserve to be heard. Please like this video and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your voice matters here. Now, let's get back to the story. Maya Richardson was 26 years old when she walked into Hartwell Financial Group for the first time as their new regional director. She had spent the morning in her small apartment in Brooklyn, standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer for the 10th time. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear exactly, but from the weight of what this day meant. She had worked for this moment for 7 years. 7 years of late nights, of proving herself in rooms where she was the only woman, the only black face, the only person under 40. She had earned 2 master's degrees while working full-time. She had turned around failing departments in 3 different companies. Her track record was flawless, but she knew that none of that would matter to some people. Not at first. Not until she made them see. The subway ride into Manhattan felt longer than usual that morning. Maya watched her reflection in the dark window. As the train rumbled through the tunnel, she thought about her grandmother, who had cleaned offices in buildings like the one Maya was about to enter. Her grandmother used to come home with swollen feet and stories about the people in suits who never looked at her, never said good morning, never saw her as fully human. Maya had promised herself she would be different. She would see people, all people, and she would demand to be seen in return. Hartwell Financial Group occupied floors 32 through 37 of a glass tower in Midtown. Maya stepped into the marble lobby and felt the cold air from the ventilation. System raised goosebumps on her arms. The security guard, an older black man with kind eyes, smiled at her as she signed in. "You look sharp today," he said. "Big meeting? Something like that?" Maya replied, returning his smile. He had no idea she was about to become one of his bosses. She liked that. She liked being underestimated. It gave her an advantage. The elevator ride up was smooth and fast. Maya closed her eyes and took 3 deep breaths, a technique her therapist had taught her. "Center yourself in your own worth," the therapist always said. "You don't need their validation. You already have the credentials. You already have the position. Walk in like you belong because you do." The elevator chimed. 35th floor. This was it. The reception area was all white leather and chrome. A young woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun looked up from her desk. "Can I help you?" Her tone was polite but dismissive, the way people sound when they assume you're delivering something. "I'm Maya Richardson," Maya said calmly. "I'm here for the executive leadership meeting." The receptionist's eyes widened slightly. She glanced at her computer screen, then back at Maya. "Oh, of course. Let me just call someone to escort you." "It's fine," Maya said. "I know where the boardroom is. I was given the floor plan yesterday." She walked past the reception desk before the woman could protest. Maya had learned long ago that confidence was half the battle. If you acted like you belonged, people's brains did strange things. They questioned their own assumptions. They second-guessed their prejudices. It bought you a few extra seconds of respect, and sometimes that was all you needed. The boardroom was at the end of a long hallway lined with portraits of former executives, all men, all white, all wearing the same expression of stern authority. Maya barely glanced at them. She was about to add a different kind of face to that legacy. The double doors to the boardroom were slightly ajar. She could hear voices inside, laughter, the casual banter of people who had known each other for years, who golfed together on weekends, whose children went to the same private schools. Maya pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The room was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A massive mahogany table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs. 12 men sat around the table. Only 12, and not a single other woman, not a single other person of color. Every head turned toward her. The conversation stopped. For a moment, nobody said anything. Maya used that moment to walk calmly to the empty chair at the head of the table, the one clearly meant for her. She set her briefcase down and remained standing. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was steady, warm, professional. I'm Maya Richardson, your new regional director. I'm looking forward to working with all of you." A few of the men nodded. A few looked confused. And then from the middle of the table came a sound that made Maya's stomach tighten. Laughter. Not polite laughter. Not nervous laughter. But the kind of laughter that dismisses, that mocks, that says you must be joking. The man laughing was in his 50s, with silver hair and a tan that spoke of recent vacation time. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. His name, according to the place card in front of him, was Richard Brennan. He was the senior vice president of investments, one of the most powerful people in the company. "I'm sorry," Richard said, still chuckling. "I think there's been some kind of mix-up. We're waiting for the new regional director. This is an executive meeting." His tone was patronizing, the way you might speak to a child who had wandered into the wrong room. Maya felt heat rise, with 7 in her chest, but her face remained calm. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't let them see you rattled, baby. That's what they want. They want you emotional so they can say you don't belong." "There's no mix-up," Maya said clearly. "I am the new regional director. I was appointed by the board 3 weeks ago. My start date is today." Several of the men shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of them, younger than the others, started to speak. "Actually, I think I received an email about—" But Richard cut him off. "Come on," he said, his smile widening. "You can't be serious. You're what, 25? 28? Do you even have an MBA? Do you know what we do here?" Maya felt something shift inside her. She had prepared for resistance. She had prepared for skepticism. But she had not quite prepared for this level of open contempt. Still, she kept her voice even. "I'm 26. I have an MBA from Columbia and a master's in economics from NYU. I've spent the last 7 years in financial management and corporate restructuring. I turned around the Northeast Division at Morrison Capital, increasing their revenue by 42% in 18 months. I was headhunted for this position because of my track record. And yes, Mr. Brennan, I know exactly what we do here." The room was silent again. But Richard wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Look, sweetheart," he said, and Maya felt several of the other men wince at the word. "I'm sure you're very smart. I'm sure you have impressive degrees. But this is a serious operation. We manage billions of dollars. Our clients are some of the wealthiest people in the country. They expect to deal with people who have experience, who have gravitas. No offense, but when you walk into a room, people are going to make assumptions. And those assumptions are going to cost us business." Maya took a slow breath. "What kind of assumptions, Mr. Brennan?" Richard shrugged. "You know what I mean. You're young. He paused as if searching for a diplomatic word. "You're not what they're expecting." Maya nodded slowly. "You mean I'm black, and I'm a woman?" Richard's face flushed slightly. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to," Maya replied. "But let me be clear. I wasn't hired to make your clients comfortable. I was hired to make this company profitable. And if your clients have a problem with my age or my race or my gender, then I suggest you help them understand that their prejudices are not our company policy." One of the men at the table, an older gentleman with glasses, cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable but curious. "Ms. Richardson, I apologize for the confusion. I'm Tom Holland, CFO. I did receive the memo about your appointment, though I'll admit I hadn't looked at the details. Can you tell us a bit more about your vision for the department?" Maya felt a small measure of relief. At least one person was willing to engage professionally. She began to speak, outlining her plans for the regional office, her strategy for client retention, her ideas for expanding into new markets. She spoke for 10 minutes without notes, her command of the material absolute. Most of the men listened. A few asked thoughtful questions. But Richard sat with his arms crossed, a smirk on his face, occasionally whispering to the man next to him. Maya ignored him. She had dealt with men like Richard before. Men who felt threatened by competence they hadn't given permission for. Men who couldn't imagine that someone who didn't look like them could be their equal, let alone their superior. When Maya finished, Tom Holland nodded appreciatively. "That's impressive. Ms. Richardson, I think you're going to bring a fresh perspective to this team." Richard snorted. "Fresh perspective? Is that what we're calling it now?" Tom shot him a warning look. "Richard, that's enough." Richard held up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. This is a joke." The board made a diversity hire to check a box. And now we're supposed to pretend that this girl— Woman, Maya corrected quietly. Her voice was like steel. I'm a woman, not a girl, and I'm your boss. Richard laughed again, louder this time. My boss? Sweetheart, I've been with this company for 23 years. I've built relationships with clients you couldn't even get a meeting with. You think some fancy degrees and a good interview make you qualified to lead this division? You think you can just walk in here and— The door to the boardroom opened. Everyone turned. An older man in an expensive suit entered, followed by two other people Maya recognized from her interviews. It was Gerald Hartwell himself, the chairman of the board, the man whose family name was on the building. The room went completely still. Gerald, Richard said, relief flooding his face. Thank God you're here. There's been some kind of mistake. This young woman claims she's our new regional director. But obviously there's been a miscommunication somewhere. We need to straighten this out before— Gerald held up a hand. Richard stopped talking. The chairman walked slowly around the table, his eyes moving from face to face. Finally landing on Maya, Ms. Richardson, he said, welcome to Hartwell Financial Group. I'm glad you could join us today. Richard's face went pale. Wait, what? Gerald turned to face the room. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of authority. Allow me to introduce Maya Richardson. 3 weeks ago, after an extensive search process, the board voted unanimously to appoint her as our new regional director for the Northeast Division. She comes to us with exceptional credentials and a proven track record of success. She will be overseeing all operations in this region, which means she will be supervising most of the people in this room. The silence was deafening. Richard looked like he might be sick. Maya remained standing, her hands folded calmly in front of her. Gerald continued. Ms. Richardson was selected from a pool of over 200 candidates. She went through 7 rounds of interviews. She was vetted by our board, our legal team, and our HR department. She is not here because of diversity initiatives. Though we are certainly proud to have her, she is here because she was the most qualified candidate. Period. Gerald's eyes settled on Richard. Now, I understand there may have been some confusion this morning, some surprise at Ms. Richardson's appointment. But let me be absolutely clear. She has the full support of the board and of this company. Any disrespect shown to her is disrespect shown to the leadership of Hartwell Financial Group. Is that understood? Murmurs of agreement around the table. Richard said nothing. His jaw was clenched tight. Gerald pulled out the chair at the head of the table and gestured for Maya to sit. She did, maintaining her composure even as her heart pounded. Gerald addressed the room once more. Miss Richardson has some innovative ideas for our regional strategy. I expect all of you to give her your full cooperation and support. We have quarterly reviews in 3 months. I'll be watching closely to see how this team performs under her leadership. With that, he nodded to Maya. The floor is yours. Then he left, taking his colleagues with him. Maya looked around the table at the 12 faces staring back at her. Some looked curious, some looked embarrassed. Richard looked furious. Maya took a breath and began again. As I was saying, she continued, her voice calm and steady, I have a vision for this division, but I can't execute that vision alone. I need a team that's willing to work together, to set aside egos and to focus on results. I don't care how long you've been here. I don't care what your title is. What I care about is whether you're willing to do the work. Over the next hour, Maya led the meeting with precision and grace. She asked questions. She listened to concerns. She acknowledged expertise when she saw it. She made it clear that she valued experience but would not tolerate insubordination. Most of the men gradually warmed to her. They could see she knew what she was talking about. They could see she wasn't there to prove a point or make them uncomfortable. She was there to do a job and she was very good at it. Richard remained silent for most of the meeting. His arms crossed, his expression stony. When Maya asked him a direct question about the investment portfolio, he gave a curt, minimal answer. Maya didn't push. She simply thanked him and moved on. She knew that some battles couldn't be won in a single day. Some people needed time to adjust to a reality that challenged everything they believed about who belonged in power. When the meeting finally ended, the men filed out slowly. A few stopped to shake Maya's hand and welcome her officially. Tom Holland lingered for a moment. Ms. Richardson, he said quietly, I want to apologize for the reception you received this morning. That was unacceptable. Maya smiled slightly. I appreciate that, Mr. Holland, but I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to work. Good, he said, a smile tugging at his own lips. I think you're going to do just fine. Richard was the last to leave. He paused at the door, turned back to Maya. You think you proved something today, he said. But this isn't over. You'll see. This job is harder than you think. And when you fail, everyone's going to know it wasn't because of your qualifications. It was because you never should have been here in the first place. Maya met his gaze without flinching. Mr. Brennan, she said softly, I don't think I proved anything today. I don't need to prove anything to you, but I will tell you this. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of failure, and I'm certainly not afraid of men who think their comfort matters more than excellence. So if you want to bet against me, go ahead. But I promise you, it won't end the way you think. Richard stared at her for a long moment, then left without another word. Maya stood alone in the boardroom, surrounded by windows that looked out over the city. She thought about her grandmother again, about all the times she had been invisible, dismissed, underestimated, about all the dreams she had carried that the world told her were too big. Maya pulled out her phone and sent a text. Made it through day one. They didn't make it easy, but I'm still standing. A moment later, her grandmother replied, Of course you are, baby. You're a Richardson. We don't fall. The next 3 months were the hardest of Maya's life. Richard made good on his implied threat. He questioned her decisions in meetings. He went around her to appeal directly to the board. He spread rumors among the staff that she was in over her head. Some of the older clients resisted working with her at first, just as he had predicted. But Maya didn't waver. She showed up every day with the same calm professionalism. She worked longer hours than anyone else. She built relationships with clients by listening to them, understanding their needs and delivering results. Slowly, the tide began to turn. A major account that had been on the verge of leaving decided to stay after Maya personally restructured their portfolio. A new client, a young tech entrepreneur who had felt alienated by the company's old guard culture, signed a multi-million-dollar deal specifically because Maya made him feel heard. The numbers started to shift. Revenue increased. Client satisfaction scores went up. Even some of Richard's allies began to acknowledge that Maya knew what she was doing. At the 3-month review, Gerald Hartwell looked over the reports with visible satisfaction. Impressive, he said. Very impressive. You've exceeded our projections in almost every category. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Thank you, sir, but I have to give credit to the team. Most of them have been incredibly supportive. Gerald raised an eyebrow. Most of you, them? Maya chose her words carefully. There have been some challenges with buy-in from certain senior members, but I'm confident we can work through it. Gerald nodded slowly. I've heard, and I want you to know that I'm watching. If anyone is actively undermining your leadership, I need to know. Maya hesitated. She didn't want to be seen as someone who ran to authority every time things got difficult, but she also knew that there was a difference between handling conflict and tolerating sabotage. I'll let you know if it becomes necessary, she said. Right now, I'm focused on results, and the results are speaking for themselves. Gerald smiled. They certainly are. Keep it up, Ms. Richardson. You're proving a lot of people wrong, and I'm proud to have you on this team. Over the following months, something shifted. Richard's resistance became less overt. He still wasn't warm, still wasn't fully cooperative, but he stopped actively working against her. Maya suspected that Gerald had had a private conversation with him. Or perhaps Richard simply realized that his tactics weren't working. Either way, the office became less hostile. Maya built alliances with the team members, who were willing to see past their initial assumptions. She mentored younger employees who reminded her of herself, people who felt like they didn't quite fit the mold. One afternoon, nearly 6 months into her tenure, Maya was working late in her office when there was a knock on the door. She looked up to see Richard standing in the doorway. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Can I come in? He asked. Of course, Maya said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Richard sat down, silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice lacking its usual confidence. I owe you an apology, he said. Maya set down her pen and gave him her full attention. When you first walked into that boardroom, Richard continued, I didn't see you. I saw a threat. I saw someone who represented everything I didn't understand about the